Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Ant on Music. I am your humble host, Ant, and we got a really long show today. I know it's going to be long. We got a lot to get through. What we're looking at today primarily is some of my favorite albums from 1985. Can you believe it's been 40 years since these albums were released? 40! That's a long time. That is literally a lifetime ago. And some of these acts are still going. Some of them aren't. Some of them are. Before we get into that, as always, I thank everybody for coming here, checking out the channel. I appreciate the conversation. Drop a comment. Thumbs up's always appreciated. Always click like. Love when you guys love what I do. Makes me, inspired to keep doing it. And most importantly, subscribe. All right, off my soapbox. Let's do a little music news. Once again, starting off the year rough. Music news, bad news. They always say no news is good news, so I have news, unfortunately. Had passing of two greats in rock and roll. I'm not going to play, not a huge fan of the band, but I do respect them, all right? And, this is a box set that I was gifted several years ago. It's basically 6-disc set, 5 CDs, and a DVD. And, the band were Bob Dylan's backup band for many years, and then they struck out on their own, and they really were influential on, the folk scene and, American Americana music in the early to mid 70s, which is kind of funny because they were mostly Canadian guys, all right? And they lost Garth Hudson. He was the last living member of the band. He passed away here in New York in Woodstock, where they recorded many of their fantastic albums, including music from Big Pink. I actually had the opportunity to visit Big Pink when I was out on the road and passed by, not supposed to go on the property. I trespassed. I went on the property. I took a peek in the windows. Pretty cool piece of rock and roll history there out in Woodstock, New York. All right. So the band Garth Hudson passed away. For us hard rock fans, this one was a shocker. I wasn't expecting to hear this, but John Sykes passed away. I guarantee if you've been watching my channel, you're familiar with John Sykes. John Sykes, first made his name with Thin Lizzy. All right, on Thunder and Lightning. Played with Lizzy, which was fantastic. And then he moved on. He joined the group, the Tigers of Pantang. And he only did this one out with them. It had the one with Lizzy, this one with Pantang. This was probably one of their heavier albums. On this you had Crazy Nights, Lonely Man, Make a Stand, and a bunch of others, obviously. And then he went on to probably his most well-known work, which was Whitesnake and the Whitesnake 87 album. John passed away at the age of only 65. That's young. He was basically a teenager when he recorded with Thin Lizzy and the Tigers of Pantang. And, then on to Whitesnake. This album was huge. He didn't tour with Whitesnake here in the States on this album. The guitar duties were picked up by Adrian Vandenberg and Vivian Campbell. But, you want to talk about monster riffs? This album is like a greatest hits package in and of itself. You have Crying in the Rain, Bad Boy, Still of the Night, Here I Go Again, which was redone from an earlier Whitesnake album. Give Me All Your Love, Is This Love, Children of the Night, Straight for Your Heart, and Don't Turn Away. This is a monster album. Then, after leaving Whitesnake, John went on and had Blue Murder, which put out a couple of albums, most notably their debut. And on the debut, you had some really fantastic songs in here, like Jelly Roll, which is my absolute favorite, Riot, the song Blue Murder, Out of Love, Ptolemy, Black Hearted Woman. This guy's played with some players. You got Carmen Appice on this. You've got, you've got David Coverdale on this, as well as Neil Murray and Ainsley Dunsbar. He's played with a ton of people. And then, as if that wasn't enough, After Blue Murder folded, he had another group, they appropriately entitled just Sykes. Now, this is a hard one to come by. This one's called Out of My Tree. And I got this as a Japanese import, long before the internet existed, as far as being relevant the way it is today. And I got this like via a catalog. And this is a Japanese import. You can tell there by the strip. It even comes with this sticker, which I've kept in the case, since the 90s. And, has all the information you want in Japanese, if you can read that. I have one friend that can. Probably doesn't watch the channel, but Pete Breen reads Japanese. And, you've got the liner notes, lyrics, all that good stuff here, pictures of the band. And, this, let's put it this way, if you like Whitesnake, if you like Blue Murder, if you can hunt this down, at this point, I don't even know what the availability of it is, but it is called Sykes, Out of My Tree. If you could find that, it's definitely worth picking up. So rest in peace, John Sykes. Thank you for all the music. Definitely one of the more influential guitarists of the 80s hard rock, heavy metal scene. Very, very cool stuff from Mr. John Sykes and company. All right, let's get into what we came here for, which was 1985, the year that was. Man, this was a great year for guitar music, and not only hard rock and heavy metal, but other stuff as well. And aside from that, it's just a great year for music. Let's kick off with one of my favorites from that time. This is one from had a couple of debuts in here too that were pretty neat. But let's start off with this one. All right, this is Dio, Sacred Heart. Okay, this was the third album from Dio as a band. After leaving Rainbow, and it was kind of maligned. It went in a more poppy direction than the previous two, than Last in Line and Holy Diver. But over time, you look back on it now, it's actually a pretty good album. It's very, it's very strong as far as the songwriting goes. It's got that Dio production, so you're listening to Ronnie James Dio and company when you hear it. It's like he literally could take any musician and plug them into the Dio way of doing things, and you knew it was Dio from the first notes you heard. And it kicks off with the King of Rock and Roll, the title track, Sacred Heart. Then you have Another Lie, then Rock and Roll Children, which got quite a bit of airplay on MTV back in the day. Hungry for Heaven, which was another big track from this. Then you have Like the Beat of a Heart, Just Another Day, Fallen Angels, and Shoot Shoot. So first one, we're looking at 10 albums from 1985. Dio, right? Another good one was Anthrax, Spreading the Disease. And on this one, you had AIR, Lone Justice, Madhouse, which was like the heavy metal anthem for a long time. Stand or Fall, The Enemy, Aftershock, Armed and Dangerous, Medusa, and Gung Ho. Great album from the guys in Anthrax. This was their first full length with Joey Belladonna, and it really was a step up from their prior album, Metal Threshing Mad with Neil Turbin, and even the Armed and Dangerous EP. If you like to listen to Anthrax, want to hear more about Anthrax, I did a whole episode on Anthrax. Do yourself a favor, go through, look for it. Pretty cool episode if you dig Anthrax. I go into every one of their albums. All right, next up, totally changed gears, away from thrash. All right, one of my favorite bands still till today, Tears for Fears. This was their second full-length LP, and this was a huge commercial success. Shout, that thing's been licensed for everything. The Working Hour is a great track. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Mother's Talk, they still play that live. I Believe, Broken, Head Over Heels, and Listen. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. That song, still to this day, rings true. So this was their second album. Another phenomenal album coming out in 1985. Yet another second album. They always talk about the sophomore jinx. No sophomore jinx in 1985, apparently. The Smiths, Meat is Murder. Okay, and this has on it the Headmaster Ritual, Rush Home Ruffians, I Want What I Can't Have, What She Said, That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, Nowhere Fast, Well I Wonder, Barbarism Begins at Home, and the title track, Meat is Murder. Yeah, Johnny Marr with some great guitar tones on this album. Definitely a step closer to where they were going as far as The Queen is Dead. You could hear where they were headed, and it was definitely in a good place. Uh, you know, this is one of those albums that really brought forth their purpose. Let's put it that way. And it was a huge accomplishment for them, and I still dig it to this day. Never got a chance to see the Smiths live, unlike Tears for Fears and Anthrax, and Whitesnake. But I did get to see Morrissey live back in the day with my best man, and it was a bit disappointing because he was already pulling the shenanigans of having people rush the stage and then canceling the concert 50 minutes in. But whatever, it is what it is. It doesn't lessen the impact of this album. All right. Next up, let's do a couple of thrash ones for you. All right. Next up, we have another monster album. Heinemann, King, Araya, and Lombardo. Just magnificent thrash album with Hell Awaits, another classic from 1985. This one's hard to beat, as far as their early catalog goes. You have At Dawn They Sleep, Praise of Death, Hardening of the Arteries, Necrophiliac, the title track, Crypts of Eternity. Very dark, heavy stuff. You can tell even from the imagery, we're not talking about pop music here. This is very much, dark, demonic, heavy metal. And, it's like the soundtrack to hell. The soundtrack, like their box set, the soundtrack to the apocalypse. Next, let's do a little disc. All right. One of my ghetto purchases from when I was going through college, high school and college, used to head down to the city at St. Mark Sounds, and this is Megadeth. And this is their debut, and this has Gar Samuelson on drums, the Daves, Dave Ellefson and David Mustaine, or David Ellefson and Dave Mustaine, and Chris Poland on guitar. And if you know your history of heavy metal, you know that, Dave Mustaine was unceremoniously booted out of Metallica, and he was sent on a bus back home to from New York back to California. Metallica had come out here. They were hanging out with Anthrax. They had met, Johnny and Marcia Zazula, and they bought Dave a one-way ticket to head home. And instead of going home with his tail between his legs, he took it upon himself to say, screw this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a band that's going to beat the living shit out of Metallica. And, this album is phenomenal. This is a must-have as far as anybody that's into, heavy metal, especially, 80s thrash metal. It just kicks ass from beginning to end. And I swear to God, I know I have it on vinyl, but can't locate it. Don't know where it's disappeared to, but I'm sure it'll turn up. Kicks off with Last Rites, Love You to Death. Killing Is My Business and Business is Good, the title track. Great title track. Skull Beneath the Skin. A cover of Nancy Sinatra with These Boots, but totally done Megadeth style. The drums sound like they're being thrown down a flight of stairs. You've got Rattlehead, which brought us Vic Rattlehead. Chosen Ones, Looking Down the Cross, and Mechanics, which, as you know, if you know your heavy metal history, that's basically Dave's version of the Four Horsemen. It's his riff. He wrote it. He can do what he wants with it. This is a classic. I would say this is a must-have for anybody. Next up, okay, we got two bands, and I saw them together for the first time. And I still love both of these bands dearly today. One's still going. The other is not. Talking about Marillion and Rush. First time I got to see Rush was 1985 on the Power Windows tour. All right, and this was a departure for Rush because they had been working with Terry Brune for years, and they finally found a new producer to bring to life what they had in mind. If you've never read the Geddy Lee book. The Geddy Lee book, My Effin' Life. Pick it up. Definitely worth reading. He gets into, you know, a lot of the albums that they've done in detail. One of them is Power Windows. And Peter Collins was the producer on this. And I got to see them for the very first time on this tour. Okay. And the cool thing about that was I also got to see Marillion for the very first time. And I have been fans of both bands prior to this, but, you know, never had the opportunity to see them, you know, for whatever reason. And this album to this day, both albums to this day, still two of my favorites. And I think that has to do with the fact it's the first time I got to see them live. But regardless, these are phenomenal albums. You have The Big Money, Grand Designs, Manhattan Project, Marathon, Territories, Middletown Dreams, Emotion Detector, and Mystic Rhythms. And a lot of the album has to deal with, you know, power, money, corruption. Those things seem always to come back in style. And, you know, they really went all out with this. Definitely a bigger sonic palette for them as opposed to their early work. It wasn't as naughty or as progressive as their other stuff. You know, there was definitely, you know, a lot of new wave influence in this album, as well as, you know, some real funky stuff in there as well. This is, they cut loose, but they also added in a lot of orchestral sounds and choirs, which Geddy Lee was able to, you know, recreate with, you know, banks of synthesizers and keyboards live on tour. And it was also where they started really putting videos out, and they had quite a successful run with Power Windows. And with Marillion, this was the album that really launched them to a wide audience across the world. This was when they were led by Fish as the lead singer, and obviously his lyrics are much different than Steve Hogarth's. And this one has their, you know, to date, their biggest single, Kaylee. Kicks off with Pseudo Silk Kimono, goes into Kaylee. This one is like, let's put it this way. This is a small C concept album. This is a big C concept album. You know, where there's a major concept as opposed to concept that's kind of running throughout through different songs in different ways, as in this more or less tells a story. You also have Lavender, Bittersweet, Heart of Lothian, Waterhole, Espresso Bongo, Lords of the Backstage, Blind Curve, Childhood's End, and Bittersweet. And also White Feather. You know, phenomenal artwork by Mark Wilkinson. This is my original copy back from 1985. And, you know, lots of great memories of seeing Marillion and Rush together on that first tour of the States for me, of seeing Marillion, which got to see them headline a couple years later at the Ritz in New York City as well. The last thing that I have to show you, and all these albums, 1985, do you believe this is all from 1 year of music? What a great diverse year. You know, new wave, art rock, prog, thrash, you name it. It's all a great mix. And of course, what week would it be when I didn't have a box set to show you, right? There's always something. This is one of my favorite albums from that time period, and one of my favorite bands of all time as well. The Cult, all right? The Cult love this album. This is a great little box set. It has quite a bit in it as far as material goes. It is a 4-disc set, all right? You know, first thing comes with this booklet right here. It's, you know, got a lot of photos, a lot of information, story of where the band was at that point in time. Try and give you something cool to look at in here. There's Billy Duffy. You know, at this point, the band is Billy Duffy, Ian Anderson, of course, Les Warner, and Jamie Stewart. And with this, you know, you have these 4 CDs that come in here, and you have the original Cult album, all right, Love. And this is obviously in a gatefold. And the cool thing is what they did with all of these was they put them in replica sleeves, even down to having a replica sleeve on the actual disc. And this has Nirvana, Big Neon Glitter. The monster track for this, obviously, She Sells Sanctuary, Brother Wolf, Love, Sister Moon, Rain, Rain Phoenix, Hollow Man, Revolution, and Black Angel. All right, good stuff. And the other stuff that they put in here were demos, which are a lot of the same stuff from, as aforementioned there. And also you had the singles. Always dug this CD. This one's one of my favorites because it has the long version of She Sells Sanctuary. That's like saying she sells seashells down by the seashore. That's a tongue twister. And then you had number 13, The Snake. Then Here Comes the Rain, Little Face. Revolution, the full-length mix, another cool, cool extended remix there. Judith, Sunrise, All Souls Avenue, the She Sells Sanctuary Howling mix, and then the Assault on Sanctuary, which was a cool remix of everything there. And the other big give me for this is Live 1985. Right from from this tour. You have Love, Nirvana, Christians, Hollow Man, Big Neon Glitter, Brother Wolf, Sister Moon, Rain, Dreamtime, She Sells Sanctuary, Go West, Spirit Walker, which I love, Horse Nation, and Phoenix. If you can find that one too, along the lines like the Sykes, good luck finding it. It's not easy. Yeah, try and find it. It's great, especially if you can just hear the live stuff. The live stuff is phenomenal. I got to go backstage for the Cult. I don't think I told that story ever. Back in my radio days, managed backstage for the Cult. It was the Cult headlining. At that point, Matt Sorum was on drums. It was on their Sonic Temple tour, which, if I'm correct, I believe celebrates 35 years. So we might take a look at that at some point this year. It's backstage with Dangerous Toys, and Bonham was on, and didn't really see Bonham. Too busy hanging out and partying with the guys in Dangerous Toys. Their drummer, Mr. Geary. It's a dangerous human being when the record company sends over a case of Jägermeister. Boys and girls, I do not advise hanging out with heavy metal bands and getting into drinking Jägermeister. It doesn't end well. I remember seeing the Cult. Glad I wasn't driving. But, those were the days. And I mean D-A-Z-E days. But that's everything I have for you. Thanks for checking out the channel. That is my take on 1985 and 40 years. 40 years of phenomenal music. Come back next week. See what we got. Next week's going to be some new releases. We'll take a look at that as well. Got a lot of new stuff. Very cool stuff coming out. And catch everyone then. As I always say, peace. One love, music. I'm out.